I stood on my own front porch in the pouring rain, my clothes soaked through, my hands shaking from cold and shock, while my daughter-in-law Jessica screamed at me through the locked door I'd just discovered wouldn't open with my own key. "Go beg on the streets like the worthless old woman you are. This is my house now." Thunder cracked overhead as she threw my clothes out the second-story window. My dresses, my underwear, my photo albums, everything landing in the mud and rain. I could see my son Marcus standing behind her in the hallway, his face twisted with discomfort but doing nothing, saying nothing, just watching his wife throw his mother out into a storm. The neighbors peeked through their curtains but no one came out. No one helped. I was 68 years old, standing in a thunderstorm, locked out of the house I'd owned for 30 years, the house I'd paid off with my own money, watching a woman who'd lived under my roof for 6 months claim it as her own. What Jessica didn't know, what she couldn't possibly have known because I'd hidden it so carefully, was that the poor old woman she was throwing into the street had $1.2 million in investment accounts. What she didn't know was that I'd spent 40 years as a social worker specializing in elder abuse cases. I knew every trick, every scam, every legal maneuver predators like her used, and what she really didn't know was that by locking me out that night she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back 6 months to the day Marcus and Jessica showed up on my doorstep with tears in their eyes and lies on their tongues. Let me show you exactly how she tried to steal my life, and exactly how I made her pay for it in ways she never saw coming. If you stay with me until the end, I promise you'll see justice so perfect, so complete, that you'll believe karma is real. Before we continue, I just want to say thank you for taking the time to hear my story. If you're comfortable, let me know where you're listening from, and what time it is where you are. Now let me tell you my story. My name is Dorothy Ann Washington, and I'm 68 years old. I was born and raised on the south side of Chicago, daughter of a postal worker and a school teacher. I put myself through college working 2 jobs, became a social worker, spent 4 decades helping vulnerable people, children, elderly, disabled folks who needed someone to fight for them. I met my husband Robert when I was 25. He was an electrician, a good man, hardworking, honest. We bought our house in Bronzeville in 1995 for $85,000. Small 3-bedroom bungalow, nothing fancy, but it was ours. Robert died 10 years ago from a heart attack. Sudden, no warning. One day he was here, the next he wasn't, but Robert was careful. He had good life insurance through his union, $400,000. I invested it wisely, lived on my pension and Social Security, let that money grow. Over 10 years with careful investing and compound interest, that $400,000 became $1.2 million. But I never told anyone, not my friends, not my church, not even my son. I'd seen too many cases in my work where family members became predators the moment they knew an elder had money. So I lived modestly, kept my 15-year-old Toyota, shopped at discount stores, clipped coupons, looked like exactly what people expected. A retired social worker living on a fixed income in a small house. Marcus was my only child. I raised him right, or so I thought. Good schools, college degree, steady job as an HR coordinator at a manufacturing company. He'd always been a gentle boy, maybe too gentle, easily influenced. When he brought Jessica home 2 years ago, I saw the red flags immediately. Jessica was 28 then, 10 years younger than Marcus, pretty in that high-maintenance way. Blonde highlights, acrylic nails, designer knockoffs, always taking selfies. She worked as a receptionist at a dental office, but talked constantly about her career goals and how she was going to build a lifestyle brand on Instagram. She was sweet to me at first, calling me Mama Dorothy, bringing me flowers, complimenting my cooking. But there was something in her eyes, a calculating coldness I'd seen before in my work. The look of someone always measuring what they could take. They dated for 8 months before Marcus announced they were getting married. I tried to talk to him privately. "Son, are you sure? You barely know her. What's the rush?" "Mom, she's amazing. She makes me feel important, special. I love her." I bit my tongue, went to the wedding, smiled for photos. What else could I do? For the first year and a half of their marriage, they lived in an apartment across town. I saw them once a month for Sunday dinner. Everything seemed normal, distant. I thought maybe I'd been wrong about Jessica. Maybe she really did love my son. Then 6 months ago on a rainy Tuesday evening they showed up at my door, both of them. Jessica was crying, mascara running down her face. Marcus looked defeated. Ashamed. Mom, he said quietly, we need to talk to you about something. I let them in, made tea, sat at my kitchen table while Jessica sobbed into a tissue. We're being evicted, Marcus finally said. We're 3 months behind on rent. They gave us a week to come up with $15,000 or we're out. $15,000, I repeated. How did you fall that far behind? Marcus lost his job 4 months ago, Jessica said through her tears. He didn't want to worry you. I've been trying to cover everything with my receptionist salary, but it's not enough. We've been using credit cards to survive and now those are maxed out too. We have nowhere to go. I looked at my son. Is this true? You lost your job? He nodded, not meeting my eyes. I got laid off. The company downsized. I've been looking for work but nothing's come through yet. My social worker instincts kicked in. I asked more questions. The story had holes. Why didn't he file for unemployment? Why didn't they tell me sooner? Why let it get this bad? But they had answers for everything. And Jessica kept crying, kept saying, I'm so ashamed. I never wanted to ask you for help. I know you're on a fixed income, but we have nowhere else to go. We're not asking for money. Marcus said quickly, we would never ask you for money. But could we stay here, just for a few months, until I find work and we can save up for a new place? I should have said no. Every instinct I had screamed no. But this was my son, my only child, and he was looking at me with such desperation, such shame. Okay, I said, you can stay in the guest room, but just for a few months, until you get back on your feet. The relief on their faces looked genuine. Jessica hugged me. Thank you, Mama Dorothy. Thank you so much. We'll make this up to you. I promise. They moved in that weekend with just a few suitcases. Most of our stuff is in storage, Jessica explained. We couldn't afford to move it. The first week was pleasant. Jessica cooked dinner, cleaned the house, was helpful and grateful. Marcus spent his days on his laptop supposedly looking for jobs. They kept to themselves, quiet, respectful. The second week, small things started changing. Jessica rearranged my living room furniture. I hope you don't mind, she said sweetly. I thought it would flow better this way. She replaced my kitchen curtains with ones she bought cheap, thin things from Target. These let in more light. By the third week, she'd taken over my living room completely. Her makeup and phone chargers everywhere. Her shoes by the door. Her shows on my TV. Dorothy, can you watch TV in your room tonight? Marcus and I are having people over. People over? What people? Just a couple of my girlfriends. Girl talk, you know. We'll keep it down. They didn't keep it down. They were loud until midnight, drinking wine, laughing. When I came out to ask them to be quieter, Jessica looked annoyed. It's only 11:30, we're not being that loud. This is my house, I said firmly. I have church in the morning, please respect that. She rolled her eyes but lowered the volume slightly. I talked to Marcus the next day. Son, you need to speak to Jessica about respecting boundaries. This is still my home. I know, Mom. I'm sorry. She's just stressed about everything. Once I find a job and we move out, it'll be better. But he didn't find a job. Week after week he claimed to be looking, sending out resumes, doing interviews, but nothing ever came through. And I started to notice he wasn't actually looking that hard. He slept until 10 a.m., played video games, browsed social media. This wasn't a man desperately seeking employment. Meanwhile, Jessica got worse. She started treating me like a guest in my own home. Dorothy, can you not cook tonight? The smell of your food bothers me. Dorothy, you're using too much hot water. You need to take shorter showers. Dorothy, can you keep your bedroom door closed? It's messy and it's bringing down the vibe of the house. My bedroom, my bathroom, everything was suddenly subject to her approval. 3 months in, she escalated. I came home from my church volunteer work to find her sitting at my kitchen table with a serious expression. Marcus was there too, looking uncomfortable. Dorothy, we need to talk about finances, Jessica said. Okay. Have you found work, Marcus? Not yet, he mumbled. Here's the thing, Jessica continued. Marcus and I have been covering the utilities and groceries since we moved in. That's about $800 a month. It's only fair that you contribute. So we think you should start paying rent. Say $500 a month. I stared at her. You want me to pay rent? In my own house? The house I own? We're covering expenses, she said smoothly. It's only fair everyone contributes. Unless you want to start paying the utility bills yourself. I checked my bank account that night. My utilities were being auto-debited from my checking account like they had been for years. I checked my credit card. The groceries were being charged there too. On the card I'd given them for emergencies, they weren't covering anything. Jessica was just demanding $500 a month for nothing. It was a pure scam. But I didn't confront her, not yet. Instead, I started documenting. I printed out my bank statements showing I was paying all the bills. I kept receipts. I started writing down every interaction, every demand, every boundary she crossed. Because my 40 years as a social worker had taught me something crucial. When you're dealing with a predator, you don't react emotionally. You gather evidence. You build a case. You wait for them to show their full hand. And Jessica was just getting started. Month 4, she started going through my mail. I caught her one afternoon with a stack of my letters, opening them casually at the kitchen table. "What are you doing?" I asked. She didn't even look guilty. "I'm helping you organize. You get so much junk mail. I'm sorting it for you. That's my private mail. You don't open my mail." She sighed dramatically. "I'm trying to help and you're being paranoid." "Fine. Sort your own mail." But she'd already seen things. My bank statements. My investment account statements. I knew because the next week, her attitude changed completely. She became calculating, cold, confident. She'd seen the numbers. She knew I wasn't poor. One evening Marcus was working a rare overnight shift at a warehouse. He'd finally gotten some temporary work. Jessica and I were alone in the house. She sat me down at the dining room table. She had papers spread out in front of her. "Dorothy, we need to talk about your estate planning." "My what?" "Your will. Your house. Marcus is your only heir. Right?" "I don't see how that's relevant right now." "It's very relevant. See, I've been doing research. If something happens to you and the house is only in your name, it goes through probate. That can take years. Marcus could lose the house, but if you add his name to the title now, it's protected." She pushed papers toward me. Official-looking legal documents. I had a lawyer friend draw these up for free. "It's a quitclaim deed. You just sign here and it adds Marcus to the title. Simple. Then when you pass, God forbid, not for many years, the house automatically goes to him. No probate, no legal fees. It protects everyone." I picked up the papers and read them carefully. My years as a social worker meant I'd reviewed countless legal documents. I knew what I was looking at. This wasn't adding Marcus to the title. This was a quitclaim deed transferring the entire property to Jessica's name. Not Marcus. Jessica. And it gave her immediate ownership. Not after my death. I put the papers down calmly. "No." "What?" I said no. "I'm not signing this. Dorothy, this is for your protection. This deed transfers my house entirely to you. Not to Marcus. To you. And it's effective immediately. I'm not signing it." Her face changed. The mask dropped completely. The sweet, grateful daughter-in-law vanished, replaced by something cold and venomous. "You selfish bitch," she said quietly. "After everything we've done for you, after we moved in here to take care of you, this is how you repay us." "Take care of me? Jessica? I don't need taking care of. I'm perfectly healthy. You moved in because you claimed to be evicted. You're a bitter old woman," she hissed. "Sitting on this house, this asset, refusing to help your own son. Marcus deserves this house. He's your only child, you should want to give it to him. If Marcus needs something, he can ask me himself. Not through you, and I'm not signing over my house to anyone while I'm still living in it." She stood up, sweeping the papers off the table. "Fine. Be that way. But you'll regret this. I promise you that." She stormed to the guest room. I heard her on the phone, voice shrill, complaining to someone, probably one of her friends. "The old bitch won't sign it. She's so selfish. We're going to have to do this the hard way." I sat at my dining room table, heart pounding. This was escalating. I needed to accelerate my documentation. I needed to be ready for whatever she did next. I didn't have to wait long. 2 days later, I left for my Wednesday morning volunteer work at the church food pantry. I did this every Wednesday, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. It was part of my routine for years. When I left that morning, the weather was clear. By noon, storm clouds had rolled in. By 1 p.m. it was pouring rain. A real Chicago thunderstorm with lightning and wind. I finished up early and drove home. I pulled into my driveway at 2:30 p.m., rain hammering my windshield. I grabbed my purse and ran to the front door, put my key in the lock. It didn't turn. I tried again. The key wouldn't even go in all the way. They'd changed the locks. I knocked on the door. Marcus? Jessica? The lock isn't working. The door opened. Jessica stood there in yoga pants and a tank top, arms crossed, a smile on her face that made my blood run cold. "Can I help you?" she said. "The lock, my key doesn't work." "Did something break?" "Oh, we changed the locks for security. There've been break-ins in the neighborhood." "Okay, well, I need the new key." "No, I don't think so." I stared at her. Rain was soaking through my jacket. "Jessica, what are you talking about? Let me in. This is my house now. You refused to transfer it legally, so I'm taking it by adverse possession. You've been gone for hours. That constitutes abandonment. So get off my property." "Abandoned? I was at church. I volunteer every Wednesday. Marcus knows that." Marcus appeared behind her in the hallway. I made eye contact with him. "Marcus, tell her this is crazy. Let me in. This is my house." He looked away. "Mom, maybe it's better if you go stay with a friend for a while. Until we figure things out."
"Figure things out? Marcus, this is my house. I own this house."
Jessica's voice got louder, theatrical. She was performing for the neighbors now. "Help, someone help. This crazy old woman is trying to break into my house. She's confused. She doesn't live here." Curtains moved in neighboring windows. I saw Mrs. Chen across the street peek out. "Jessica, stop this right now. I'm calling the police." "Go ahead, call them. I'll tell them you're a confused old woman who used to live here but moved to a nursing home. I'll tell them you have dementia, and you're having an episode." "I don't have dementia and you know it." She went back inside for a moment, then the second-story window opened. My bedroom window. She started throwing things out. My clothes, my shoes, my framed photos. Everything landed in the muddy front yard soaking in the rain. There's your stuff. You're not coming back in. This is my house now. You want somewhere to live? Go beg on the streets like the worthless old woman you are." I stood there in the pouring rain, watching my belongings hit the mud, watching my son stand behind his wife and do nothing. A lifetime of my possessions being destroyed while neighbors watched and did nothing. I could have screamed, could have broken a window, could have called the police right then. But something in me went very calm, very cold, very calculated. I looked up at Jessica, rain streaming down my face. "Okay," I said quietly. "Okay." I gathered what I could of my clothes from the mud, shoved them into a garbage bag I found by the side of the house. My photo albums were ruined, but I salvaged a few pictures. Everything else was destroyed. Then I walked away. 6 blocks in the pouring rain to my friend Marlene's house. Marlene took one look at me standing on her porch soaking wet, holding a bag of muddy clothes, and pulled me inside. "Dorothy, what on earth happened?" I told her everything. Every detail. By the time I finished, Marlene was shaking with rage. "We're calling the police right now." "She can't do this. This is illegal on every level." "No," I said calmly. "Not yet." "What do you mean?" "Not yet. Dorothy, she threw you out of your own house." "I know, and I'm going to make her pay for it. But I need to do this right. I need to let her show her full hand, because this isn't just about getting my house back. This is about making sure she never does this to anyone else." I pulled out my phone and started making calls. First to a private investigator I'd worked with during my social work days. "Gerald, it's Dorothy Washington. I need a complete background check on someone, and I need it yesterday." Then I called my lawyer. "Richard, I need to see you tomorrow morning. I'm dealing with housing fraud and elder abuse. My own daughter-in-law." And then I called my bank. "Yes, I need to report suspected identity theft. I believe someone has been using my credit cards without authorization." Marlene watched me make these calls with growing understanding. "You have a plan?" "I always have a plan," I said. 40 years as a social worker taught me something. Marlene, predators like Jessica only succeed when their victims react emotionally, when they panic, when they act rationed and desperate. But I'm not panicking. I'm strategizing, and by the time I'm done, Jessica won't just lose that house. She'll lose everything. Over the next 3 days staying at Marlene's house, I built my case like I used to build cases for my vulnerable clients. Gerald, the private investigator, called me back in 48 hours. "Dorothy, you need to hear this. Your daughter-in-law isn't who she says she is." He'd found everything. Jessica's real name was Jessica Marie Brennan. She was 30, not 28. And this wasn't her first time doing this. 5 years ago in Ohio, she'd married a man named Thomas Brennan. Thomas's grandmother lived with them. Within 6 months, Jessica had convinced Thomas that his grandmother needed to be in a nursing home. Within a year, she'd gotten Thomas to sign over his grandmother's house to her name using a power of attorney she'd manipulated the grandmother into signing. The grandmother ended up homeless. Living in a shelter, she died of pneumonia 6 months later. Jessica sold the house, pocketed $180,000, divorced Thomas, and disappeared. There was a police investigation, Gerald said. But they couldn't prove she'd forged the grandmother's signature on the power of attorney. The grandmother was dead. Thomas was traumatized and wouldn't cooperate. The case was dropped. She's a professional, I said. This is what she does. There's more. I checked her financial records. She's racked up $50,000 in credit card debt under various names. She's being sued by 3 creditors. She's desperate for money. Your house isn't just a target of opportunity. She researched you. She found Marcus through social media, saw he had a single mother with property and targeted him specifically. My blood ran cold. This was premeditated, calculated, evil. And the eviction story? I asked. Complete fiction. They never had an apartment. They were living in a motel. She convinced Marcus to help her run this con. Though honestly, I think Marcus is as much a victim as you are. She's been manipulating him psychologically for 2 years. I called my lawyer Richard next. He reviewed the quitclaim deed Jessica had tried to get me to sign. If you'd signed this, you would have lost everything. The house would be completely hers. Not even Marcus would have a claim. And she could have sold it immediately. Dorothy, this is textbook fraud. I know. Now here's what I need you to do. I laid out my plan. Richard listened, occasionally laughing in disbelief, occasionally gasping. Dorothy, this is brilliant. But are you sure? This is going to get ugly. It's already ugly, Richard. Now it's going to get just. I also called my bank about the credit cards. They pulled the records. Over the past 6 months, Jessica had been using my credit card for everything. Groceries, yes, but also clothes, makeup, restaurant meals, online shopping. She'd racked up $30,000 in charges. I authorized her to use the card for household groceries. I told the fraud department, not for personal shopping sprees. I want to file formal fraud charges. They started the investigation immediately. I also did something crucial. I contacted Adult Protective Services, the same agency I'd worked with for decades, and filed a report on myself. The caseworker, a young woman named Tamika, who I'd actually trained years ago, came to Marlene's house. Miss Dorothy, they said you filed a report about yourself? I did. I need a full competency evaluation. I need it documented that I am of sound mind, have full decision-making capacity, and am not confused or suffering from dementia. Why would you need that? I explained the situation. Tamika's face grew darker with each sentence. That's elder abuse. Financial exploitation. That's my specialty because you taught me. I know. So I need this evaluation to be thorough, documented, and irrefutable, because she's going to claim I'm incompetent. I need proof that I'm not. Tamika did a complete assessment over the next 2 days. Cognitive tests, mental status exams, daily living activities evaluation, financial management review. Miss Dorothy, you're one of the sharpest people I've ever evaluated. Your score is 99th percentile for your age group. Anyone who claims you're incompetent is either lying or delusional. Put that in writing, notarize it. I'm going to need it. Meanwhile, I watched my house from Marlene's car. We'd park down the street, and I'd observe. Jessica was already acting like she owned the place. She had friends over constantly, loud parties. I saw her on the front porch taking selfies, bragging on her phone. Yeah, I finally got that old lady to leave. It's my house now. About time. She'd even put up new curtains, painted the front door a different color. She was establishing adverse possession, making it look like she was the owner, that the property was hers. But I wasn't worried, because I had a title deed. I had competency evaluations. I had fraud evidence. I had a documented pattern of criminal behavior. And I had patience. On day 10 of my lockout, I went back to my lawyer Richard's office. She filed a police report, Richard said, showing me a document. She reported you as a missing vulnerable adult, claims you have dementia, that you wandered away from home, that she's concerned for your safety. Of course she did. She's trying to have me declared incompetent so I can't challenge her takeover. Well, good luck with that. I've got your competency evaluation from APS. But there's something else you need to see. He pulled up a website on his computer, a real estate listing for my house. Listed at $280,000. Photos of my living room, my kitchen, my bedrooms. The description read, charming 3-bedroom bungalow in up-and-coming Bronzeville neighborhood. Owner motivated, quick sale possible. Jessica had listed my house for sale, using forged documents claiming she was the owner. Richard looked at me. Dorothy, we need to act now. She's going to sell your house out from under you. No, I said calmly. Let her try. I want to see how far she'll go. I want every bit of fraud documented. You're playing with fire. I'm playing chess, and she's about to walk into checkmate. Over the next week, I watched the online listing. Jessica had multiple showings. She was telling potential buyers that she'd inherited the house from her grandmother, that she needed to sell quickly because she was relocating for work. Every lie was documented, every showing was noted. I had Gerald, my PI, photograph everyone who came to look at the house. Then, 2 weeks after she locked me out, the listing changed to sale pending. She'd accepted an offer, $265,000 cash from real estate investors who wanted a quick close. The closing was scheduled for the following Friday. 4 days away. That's when I made my move. I called Richard. File an emergency injunction. I want that sale stopped, and I want it done in a way that makes her fraudulent ownership claim completely public. You sure? Once we do this, there's no going back. I'm sure. She's had her fun. Now it's my turn. Richard filed the injunction Thursday afternoon, 1 day before closing. He submitted my title deed, my competency evaluation, the fraud evidence, the background check showing her pattern of elder exploitation, everything. The title company called the investors and Jessica to inform them the sale was halted. There were competing ownership claims. The property couldn't be transferred until it was resolved. Jessica called me, screaming. I'd given Marlene's number as my emergency contact, so Jessica had gotten it from somewhere. You bitch. You ruined everything. That house is mine. No, Jessica, it's not. It never was. And now everyone knows you tried to sell property you don't own. That's a felony. You can't prove anything. I'll tell them you're crazy. You're confused. I have a competency evaluation from Adult Protective Services. I have a clean bill of mental health. You have nothing but lies. She hung up on me, but I could hear her screaming. The investors sued Jessica for fraud and breach of contract. They wanted their earnest money back plus damages. That's when things accelerated. Friday morning, I went to the police station with Richard, Gerald's investigator report, all my evidence, and Tamika from APS. I'm here to report elder abuse, financial exploitation, identity theft, fraud, and attempted theft of real property, I told the detective at the desk. They assigned me Detective Marcus Williams from the Financial Crimes Unit. I spread everything out on his desk. Mom, this is comprehensive, he said, looking through the documents. You've basically done our investigation for us. I was a social worker for 40 years. I know how these cases work. I know what you need to prosecute. He smiled slightly. I can tell. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a warrant for her arrest on multiple charges, and we're going to execute it at the property. You want to be there? Absolutely. That afternoon, I stood across the street from my house with Detective Williams, 2 uniformed officers, a locksmith, and my lawyer Richard. You ready for this? Richard asked. I've been ready since the day she threw me out in the rain, I said. We walked up to the front door. Detective Williams knocked. Police, open the door. Jessica opened it, annoyed. What? I already told you people, that crazy old woman. She stopped mid-sentence when she saw me standing behind the police. Jessica Marie Brennan, Detective Williams said, you're under arrest for identity theft, fraud, forgery, attempted theft, and elder financial exploitation. What? No. This is a mistake. That woman is mentally ill. She doesn't even live here. I held up the title deed. This is my house. My name is on this deed. I have never transferred ownership to you or anyone else. You changed my locks illegally. You threw me out of my own home. You stole my identity. You forged documents, and you attempted to sell my property using fraudulent paperwork. And all of it is documented. Marcus, Jessica screamed into the house. Marcus, get out here. Tell them this is our house. Marcus came to the door. He looked terrible, unshaven, exhausted, defeated. Marcus, Detective Williams said, did you know your wife was committing fraud? Marcus looked at me, then at Jessica, then at the ground. I thought we were just trying to get Mom to sign over the house early. For estate planning. Jessica said it was normal. I didn't know about the fake documents or the credit cards or any of it. So you just stood there and watched your mother get thrown out in the rain and did nothing? I asked quietly. He started crying. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry. She said you were being unreasonable. She said we needed to teach you a lesson. I didn't think she'd go this far. I didn't know. You knew enough. I said. You knew I was your mother and you threw me out of my own house. The police handcuffed Jessica. She was screaming, thrashing, claiming it was all a misunderstanding, claiming I was senile and confused. Mom, we have your competency evaluation. Detective Williams said, you're perfectly lucid, and we have evidence of your prior fraud in Ohio. You're not talking your way out of this. They put her in the police car. Marcus tried to follow. Mr. Washington, the detective said, we need to question you too. You may be charged as an accessory. Marcus collapsed on my porch, sobbing. Mom, please. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know it was this bad. I looked at him, my son, my only child, the boy I'd raised and sacrificed for, and all I felt was disappointment. Marcus, you watched her throw me out in a thunderstorm. You stood there and did nothing while your wife destroyed my belongings and told me to beg on the streets. You may not have known about the fraud, but you knew that was wrong. You knew and you let it happen. I'm sorry, he sobbed. I'm so sorry. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix this. The locksmith changed my locks back while I stood there. I walked into my house for the first time in 2 weeks. It was a mess, trash everywhere, dishes piled up, walls scratched from furniture being moved. It smelled like smoke and alcohol, but it was mine. Still mine. Over the next 3 months, the legal process unfolded exactly as I'd planned. Jessica was charged with multiple felonies: identity theft, fraud, forgery, attempted theft, elder abuse, and financial exploitation. The prosecutor also got the Ohio case reopened based on the new evidence showing a pattern of behavior. Marcus was questioned but ultimately not charged. The police determined he was manipulated and stupid, not criminally complicit. But I filed for a restraining order against him anyway. He was not welcome in my house. Jessica's trial was quick. With all my documentation, with Gerald's investigation, with the Ohio case as precedent, she had no defense. Her public defender tried to negotiate a plea deal. My client is willing to plead guilty to lesser charges in exchange for no deals, the prosecutor said, looking at me. Ms. Washington has made it clear she wants this case tried fully. She wants every charge prosecuted. That's right, I said. I want everyone to see exactly what she did. I want it on record so she can never do this to anyone else. The trial lasted 3 days. The jury deliberated for 2 hours. Guilty on all counts. At sentencing, the judge allowed me to give a victim impact statement. I stood up in that courtroom, looked Jessica in the eyes and spoke. You told me to go beg on the streets. You called me worthless. You threw me out of my home in a thunderstorm and destroyed my belongings while my neighbors watched. You tried to steal everything I'd worked for my entire life. You targeted me because you thought I was vulnerable. You thought I was weak. You thought I was just a poor old woman with no resources and no one who cared. But what you didn't know is that I spent 40 years protecting people like me from people like you. I know every trick. I know every scam. I documented everything you did, and now you're going to pay for it. Not just what you did to me, but what you did to that grandmother in Ohio. What you've done to every victim you've ever targeted. You wanted my house? You wanted to make me homeless? Let me tell you what's going to happen instead. You're going to prison. And when you get out, you'll have a felony record. No one will rent to you. No one will employ you. You'll know exactly what it feels like to be vulnerable and homeless. Maybe then you'll understand what you put me through. Jessica was crying, begging the judge for mercy. The judge wasn't moved. Miss Brennan, you are a predator. You systematically target vulnerable elderly people, gain their trust and steal everything from them. The evidence shows you've done this multiple times. The evidence shows you feel no remorse, only entitlement. I'm sentencing you to 6 years in state prison for the charges related to Miss Washington, and I'm recommending you serve those consecutively with the charges from Ohio. 6 years, plus restitution of $30,000 for the credit card fraud, plus $50,000 in damages, plus paying back the investors she'd tried to defraud. Jessica didn't have that money. She'd spent everything. The judge ordered her wages garnished for the rest of her life. You wanted to leave Miss Washington homeless and destitute, the judge said. Instead, you'll be homeless and destitute when you're released. Perhaps you'll learn some empathy. They took her away. She screamed the whole way out of the courtroom. I sat there feeling not triumph but relief. It was over. After the trial, I went home to my house, the house Jessica had tried to steal. I cleaned it thoroughly, erasing every trace of her presence. I repaired the damage, repainted the walls she'd scratched, replaced the furniture she'd ruined. And then I made a decision. I sold the house, got $295,000 for it. The neighborhood was booming, exactly like Jessica had predicted. But unlike her, I was the rightful owner and got every penny. I used the money to buy a beautiful condo near Marlene. Modern, acceptable, perfect for aging in place. And I used the rest of the money, combined with my investment accounts, to start something I'd been thinking about for years. The Elder Justice Fund, a nonprofit providing free legal services, housing advocacy and support for elderly people fighting fraud and exploitation. We help people like me and people unlike me, who don't have my resources or knowledge, fight back against predators. I hired lawyers, social workers, and investigators. We take on cases like mine for free. We've helped dozens of people in the past year. We've stopped evictions, prosecuted fraudsters, and recovered stolen property. I became the executive director. At 69 years old, I was busier than I'd ever been, and happier. As for Marcus, he tried to reconcile. He called, emailed, sent letters. Mom, please. I made a mistake. I was manipulated. Can we try again? I met him once, 6 months after Jessica's conviction. We sat in a coffee shop, and I looked at the son I'd raised. Marcus, I'm going to tell you something and I need you to really hear it. What Jessica did was unforgivable. But what you did was almost worse. Mom? Let me finish. Jessica was a stranger, a predator. I expected nothing from her. But you were my son. You knew me. You knew my character. You knew I wasn't confused or incompetent. And you stood there and let her throw me out in a storm. You watched her destroy my belongings. You heard her tell me to beg on the streets. And you did nothing. That wasn't manipulation, that was a choice. You chose her over me. You chose your own comfort over your mother's safety. And that's something I can't forget. I know. And I hate myself for it. Every day. Good? You should. But hating yourself isn't enough. You need to become a different person. You need to grow a spine. You need to learn to stand up for people who are vulnerable, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. I'm trying. I'm in therapy, I'm working on myself. That's good. Keep doing that. And maybe someday when you've actually changed we can try to rebuild something. But right now, I don't trust you. And I'm not letting you back into my life until I do. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. I understand. One more thing. You're not in my will. I've left everything to the Elder Justice Fund. You're not getting a penny from me. I don't care about the money. Yes, you do. Or you wouldn't have gone along with Jessica's plan. But this isn't punishment. This is a natural consequence. You chose to help someone steal from me. So you don't get to inherit from me. It's that simple. I stood up to leave. He grabbed my hand. Mom, I love you. I know I don't deserve it. But I love you. I love you too, Marcus. But love isn't enough. Not anymore. Earn my trust back. Become someone I can be proud of. And maybe we'll talk again. That was 8 months ago. Marcus has been true to his word. He's in therapy. He volunteers at the Elder Justice Fund, doing administrative work, learning about elder abuse. He's becoming someone better. Maybe someday I'll trust him again. Maybe someday we'll rebuild our relationship, but it will be on my terms, when I'm ready, if I'm ever ready. For now I wake up every morning in my condo, make my coffee and go to work at the fund. I help people who are facing the same evil I faced. I give them the tools I had, knowledge, resources, and most importantly the understanding that they are not powerless. Last week I got a letter, from Jessica, from prison. It was 3 pages long, handwritten, begging for forgiveness, claiming she'd found God, claiming she was sorry, claiming she'd changed. The last paragraph said, I'm going to be released eventually, and when I am, I'll have nothing. No money, no job prospects, nowhere to live. I was hoping you might find it in your heart to help me, to give me a second chance. You're a good person, Dorothy. You help people. Please help me. I read it once. Then I wrote a single sentence on the bottom and sent it back. You told me to go beg on the streets. Now you'll know how it feels. I don't feel guilty. I don't feel conflicted. She made her choices. She destroyed lives without remorse. She's facing consequences she earned. As for me, I'm 69 years old. I'm healthier, happier, and more purposeful than I've ever been. I have work that matters. I have friends who support me. I have a life Jessica tried to take but couldn't. She wanted to leave me homeless and alone. Instead, she made me stronger. She gave me a mission. She turned my trauma into purpose. And that's the best revenge of all. Thank you for watching.